A huge win over the Cubs on Thursday night kept the Mets in control of their fate going into the final weekend of the season. All that stands in their way of a playoff berth is those pesky Miami Marlins.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. Well, the Mets went into their game on Thursday night knowing that it was a must-win as the Reds had beaten the Pirates earlier on in the afternoon. So had they lost, they would not be controlling their fate going into this final weekend of the season. Nolan McLain was on the mound, which was really big, but the Mets had to score some runs, and they get a few early in very interesting fashion. Top of the first inning, Francisco Lindor dropped the leadoff walk. Juan Soto flies out. Pete Alonso hits a double into the left field corner to put two runners in scoring position for Mark Vientos, and Vientos pops out. But he hit it down, and it was near foul territory, or as near the stands in foul territory. Dansby Swanson catches it and has to go into the stands to make the play. And as soon as he does, Francisco Lindor breaks for the plate. Now, Swanson flips it up in the air as he's folded over. Matt Shaw catches it barehanded, fires it home. You'd think, oh, man, Lindor just got gunned out at the plate. But then Francisco Lindor calmly talks to the umpire, and we learn that there's a rule. And that is, if a player goes into foul territory, the runners advance. And so all the Mets were doing by sending Lindor there was just making sure that the umpires upheld that rule and that they would get that run. So it was a heads-up play by Lindor, and I do resent the fact that if you go to MLB.com, Anthony DiComo has put out a story, and the headline is, the Mets, let's see, here it is, lucky break on odd play helps the Mets retain wildcard lead, as if that's the only reason they won the game, because of some fluky rule. And I resent that a little bit because Brandon Nimmo got a base hit the next batter up. And so the Mets easily could have scored two runs with Nimmo's knock, and it wouldn't have mattered. They just took advantage of the situation because they knew the rule. And the Cubs burned a challenge because they didn't know the rule. But regardless, the Mets get two runs in the first inning before Nolan McLain steps on the mound, and McLain was dominant early. First three innings, he gave up nothing. And the Mets get another run in the top of the third inning as Francisco Lindor hit his 30th home run of the season, his second 30-30 season in the last 3 years, and he should have had three in a row, as last season he came a single stolen base short, and he would have gotten there if not for that back injury that really limited him down the stretch. He wasn't going to try to steal any bases with an achy back. So that's the only reason why it wasn't back-to-back-to-back 30-30 seasons, and Lindor does not get nearly enough love for the performance that he has put up for the Mets over the last couple of years. He's consistently a top 5 shortstop in baseball, more often a top 3 shortstop in baseball, and this season has been a really good one for Lindor. It's only the second time in franchise history and third time in MLB history that two teammates have gone 30-30 in the same season. Soto and Lindor both doing it, and back in 1987, Hojo and Darryl Strawberry did it. Only 3 times, though, in MLB history that two teammates have joined the 30-30 club in the same year. So good stuff on that note for the Mets. Now, again, McLain did not give up a run in his first 3 innings pitch. He struck out the side in the second inning and picked up 6 strikeouts overall through the first 3 frames. Third inning, you had an outstanding barehanded play by Brett Baty that ended that inning. Baty coming in on the ball. Only chance to get the speedy runner was to go with the bare hand, fire a strike. Really good play by Pete Alonso on the back end of that, though, to make a good athletic pick. And Nolan McLain was fired up. Baty was fired up, and he carried that over into his next at bat in the top of the fourth. You had Brandon Nimmo and Luis Torrens each get base hits, and Baty cashed them in with an opposite field 3-run homer it's pretty clear at this point that the Mets need to play Brett Baty every single day. And we'll talk about that more in the coming segments here. But I think you got to lean defense. You got to put Baty at third. You got to keep Tyrone Taylor in center field, and you figure out the rest from there. But Baty is too imperative to this team defensively. Mark Fantos doesn't make that play. And who knows if that would have changed the game entirely. Maybe Nolan McLean strikes out the next batter. But there was a runner on base, and there could have been 2 runners on, 2 outs. Who knows what happens? Huge play by Baty. And then, of course, the 3-run homer breaks the game open. You had solo home runs given up by McLean in the 4th and the 5th inning, but he also added 4 more strikeouts across those 2 innings. So he ends up reaching double digits in strikeouts for the first time in his career. Tyrone Taylor gets those 2 runs back for the Mets in the top of the 6th, driving in Brandon Nimmo and Brett Baty, who both singled. Taylor hit an RBI double that made it 8-2. And then in the 6th inning, we saw the wheels come off a little bit for McLean. Again, he looked dominant early. He was throwing those blitz balls or frisbee sweepers, however you want to call it. The movement was insane. He was getting swing and miss. He really was in complete command. But I think he was left in a batter too long in that 6th inning. He gave up a walk. This was after picking up a strikeout to open with the frame, his 11th strikeout. Then he gives up a double to put 2 runners on for Seiya Suzuki. And Suzuki was one of the guys that got him for a home run earlier in the game. The first one, they hit a homer off of him. Then it was Dansby Swanson who hit the other one. I think that should have been the time to pull McLean. I was wondering why Carlos Mendoza did not pull him out of the game at that point. And he ends up paying for it as Seiya Suzuki. It's a 3-run homer and makes it a close ball game. But the Mets bullpen was nails from there. Ryan Stanek came on, got the final 2 outs of that 6th inning. And then you went to your back-end arms, the 3 guys that you're going to trust to close out big games for you. Brooks Raley in the 7th, he struck out the side. Tyler Rogers in the 8th, 1-2-3 frame. And Edwin Diaz came on and picked up his 28th save of the season. Gave up a leadoff single, but then he got a fly out and a double play ball to finish off the game. Huge win for this Mets team. I mean, you can't say that enough. If they lose this game, I don't think they make the playoffs, because then the Reds all of a sudden are back in the pole position, and the Mets are playing from behind, feeling even more pressure as they go to Miami. It's going to be a grind of a weekend to get to this finish line. It's still a magic number of 3 with 3 left to play, and the Brewers have nothing left to play for really outside of home field advantage going up against the Reds. So the question is, can the Mets make it out of Miami alive? And also, how do they do it when it comes to this struggling rotation? You got Brandon Sproat going on Friday. Who knows who's pitching on Saturday and Sunday? And those problems will only follow the Mets into the playoffs. So can their bats and their bullpen do all the heavy lifting and allow this team to actually make a run? That's what we're going to start with next here in the upcoming segment. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugiet Go Long. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra, Cialis, maybe even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. This isn't just another ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can be ready to go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment will get shipped directly to your door, discreetly to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com. That's Rugiet.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet, Rugiet.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. We're within 500. I wanted to get there by the end of the season, so I'm going to need a big push over this final weekend here. Really do appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. If you look at where the Mets are at right now and what it's going to take for them to not only make the playoffs, but to go on a run, they have to be led by their bats. But as you look at what this offense has done this season, I don't think they've gotten anywhere near enough credit because at times, sure, the timely hitting has eluded them. But if you just look at the offensive numbers through 159 games, this team is fourth in Major League Baseball in home runs. They're 10th in runs scored. They're sixth in OPS. They're fourth in total stolen bases, and they're first in stolen base efficiency. You look at what they've done since the All-Star break. Fourth in runs scored, third in OPS, fourth in home runs. This has been a top 5 offense in baseball in the second half. Hasn't felt like it because they haven't won very many games, but that's because the starting pitching has been that brutal and the bullpen has been bad through stretches as well. But you look at the individual seasons the Mets have gotten this year, it will be a crime if they can't make the playoffs, considering what they got from their best players. As much as you might say, oh, this core needs to have a shakeup, they're not the right pieces. There's just something missing that's preventing this team from being a real winner. Look at the numbers, and it's hard to see what's missing from this core, honestly. Juan Soto, 927 OPS, 43 homers, 105 RBIs, 36 stolen bases. As good of a season as you could have possibly expected. Pete Alonso, 37 homers, 123 RBIs. Francisco Lindor goes 30-30 again. Brandon Nimmo sets career highs with 25 homers and 92 RBIs. Brett Baty hit 18 home runs. He's at 18 right now. Very well could get to a 20 home run season if he has a big weekend in Miami. Mark Vientos, in a down year, still has hit 17 homers. Jeff McNeil, bounce back year to get to a 757 OPS. Not his best season for sure, but much better than the year that we saw from him last season. And then you have Francisco Alvarez, who since he came back from that midseason demotion, he's 7th in Major League Baseball in WRC+. WRC+ is weighted runs created plus. That measures hitters on a league average of 100. So by that stat, Francisco Alvarez has been a top 10 hitter in baseball. A very small sample size, 38 games. But still, he has been outstanding offensively since he had that demotion. He's also 10th in OPS since the All-Star break as well. Again, small sample size, but he's been a really solid hitter lately. And then right there with those guys, you still have Starling Marte, who's had a solid year. I think if you look at what this team has to do moving forward, Brett Baty's got to be the everyday third baseman. You got to just roll with Tyrone Taylor in center field because it makes your team so much better defensively. And then you just ride the hot hand at DH. Whether that's Starling Marte or Mark Vientos, you figure it out, and that's what you go with. But to me, I don't think there's any other decisions that should be made here. I don't think there's any other lineups to be played with. Cedric Mullins in center field, forget that. You can put him on a playoff roster if you want to give you another center fielder and a left-handed bat off your bench, but I wouldn't start him over Tyrone Taylor. And as much as the Jeff McNeil and center field experiment worked out for stretches for this Mets team, I don't think they should be doing that in October. I really don't. Especially when you think about this pitching staff and the state of the rotation. You need Tyrone Taylor out there to steal a big out for you or to be able to come up firing and gun down a runner at the plate. You need him out there. And it seems like when the pressure ticks up, he gives you some good at-bats. Had a big double in the game today. So to me, Tyrone Taylor should be in center field. Jeff McNeil should be at second base. Brett Baty at third. Obviously, all year you've had Lindor at short, Alonso at first, Nimmo on left, Soto on right. That's your team. Alvarez behind the dish for all these games that matter. For this one on Thursday, because he cramped up a little bit at the end of the game on Wednesday, Carlos Mendoza wanted to give him a day. We got a lot of response from my Locked On Mets insiders, our texting service, with people pretty frustrated that they didn't DH him instead of Mark Vientos. But it does limit your bench late in games if you have your backup catcher for the game in the DH spot, because then if you're going to pinch hit for Torrens in a big spot or pinch run for Torrens in a big spot, now you're going to lose your DH. So I understand why the Mets didn't do that, and also it allowed Alvarez to get a full game off his feet. Same thing with McNeil as the Mets went with Acuna in this one. And so now it sets those guys up to hopefully be fresh for this weekend series. But I think this lineup really is as good as the Mets have had top to bottom in some time when you consider the Juan Soto effect and what those guys have done atop the lineup. It's been a really good year offensively, even when it hasn't felt that way. And when you put Beatty at third and Tyrone Taylor in center, your defense is actually pretty solid. You do have some holes in your corner outfield spots when it comes to Brandon Nimmo's arm in left and Juan Soto's range in right. And we know Pete Alonso comes with its own struggles defensively at first, particularly throwing to first base. But it's a lot different than putting Jeff McNeil in center field or Mark Vientos at third base. Those things, to me, just can't happen anymore. So this lineup is capable of winning the World Series. I honestly do believe that. The problem is I don't know if this rotation is capable of winning a playoff series. I really don't, because I wrote a whole article for Just Baseball today about it, where I basically proclaimed the season dead. And I'm the biggest Mets optimist you're going to find. But what I said was not that the Mets are going to get eliminated before they get to October, but I find it really hard to believe that with the current state of the rotation, they can win 2 games against the Dodgers in a 3-game series. I think that's definitely possible. It's a 3-game set, but it's going to be tough. And then after that, going to Philadelphia and beating a really good Phillies team in a 5-game series without anyone in your rotation that you trust outside of Nolan McLean. And then if you get through all of that, maybe the Brewers are waiting for you on the other side in a 7-game series. It's just a long journey to get through with one viable starting pitcher. I just don't know if that's going to hold up. They are going to need a huge resurgence from David Peterson and or Sean Manaea, and I don't know if they have that in the tank. But as I pointed out in the article, as much as everybody is on David Stearns right now for the moves that were made at the deadline, what I illustrated in the article is the decision-making at the deadline was not as bad as you think. It's just this has been a meltdown of epic proportions that nobody could have saw. Who saw David Peterson pitching to an ERA near 8 after the deadline? At the deadline, through 20 starts, he was at a 2.81 in 121 innings pitched. He was routinely going out there and giving the Mets quality starts. Everybody thought he was going to make it to the end of the season and be a guy that you could hand the ball to in October. Now, not so much. Clay Holmes had a 3.45 ERA at the deadline. Kodai Senga had 2 bad starts before the deadline, but his first start off the injured list was 4 scoreless innings, and he still had a 2.00 ERA at the deadline because of those outstanding first 13 starts. Yes, you could have had a little bit of concerns about his last 2 outings, but to think he would be so bad that he would get demoted to the minor leagues, that was out of the realm of possibilities. Nobody saw that coming. And then Sean Manaea, I think there's some revisionist history. Manaea hasn't looked good all year. He faked the Mets out. He was fool's gold before the deadline. 4 appearances, 3 starts, 17 and a third innings pitched, allowed only 11 hits and 4 walks. So his whip was under 1, 0.87 whip. His ERA was 2.08. He gave up 1 run in each of those 4 appearances. In his last 2 starts, he went 5 innings of 1-run ball. Was up to 86 pitches. And again, you look at the ERA is great, the whip was great. He struck out 22 in 17 and a third innings pitched. So his strikeout per 9 was over 11. He looked like a guy that was going to have a big second half. The wheels fell off right after that, but nobody could have seen that coming. And so now you're in this position where it's Nolan McLean and a whole lot of question marks. So the bullpen's got to be great. And that's what the bullpen had to bet in the second half. If the bullpen was great post-deadline, it could have covered up some of these warts, and the Mets would already be in the playoffs right now. But lately, the bullpen has turned a little bit of a corner. Edwin Diaz, last 8 games, 9 and a third innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 walk, 1 earned run, 13 strikeouts. On the season, he's got a 1.71 ERA. Tyler Rogers, last 8 games, 7 and 2 third innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 2.35 ERA. On the season, his ERA is 1.89. You got Brooks Raley over the last couple weeks. He did give up 2 runs in one of his appearances. He has, across his last 17 appearances, 3 earned runs, 6 earned runs in 28 appearances this year. And 25 of those 28 appearances have been scoreless appearances for Raley, who's got a 2.25 ERA. You have a 7-8-9 combination that is working. Ryan Stanek has been a lot better lately. 1 earned run in his last 6 appearances. Ryan Helsley has not given up a run in his last 5 appearances. Gregory Soto has struggled this month, giving up 8 earned runs in 9 innings pitched, but he had a 1.64 ERA in August. So the pieces are there to have a solid enough bullpen, and Dylan Ross apparently could be entered into the fold, as we'll talk about in the next segment. So that's another high-octane arm that could be added to this equation. If the New York Mets are going on a run this year, it's going to be because of the bats and the bullpen, and then getting just enough from the starting pitching where they're not getting buried in the first 3 innings of games. That's what we need to see this weekend. We need to see the bats come alive against some good starting pitchers that the Marlins are going to roll out there, and that's what they're going to have to do once they get into a wild card round, and the bullpen has to hold down any leads that they get. It is a very, very thin needle that they're trying to thread here. It's a very, very tough thing. But the season's not over yet, and it's going to be a fun weekend in Miami one way or the other. It's either going to be a triumphant weekend as the Mets make the playoffs or a collapse we're never going to forget. So I'm going to talk about what will happen this weekend to close out the show in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And again, if you win that first $5 bet, you're going to get $300 to use across the app. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service. You get updates from me anytime news breaks from the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways, and get a lineup graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. So this is just where you wanted to be, right? Going into the season, you might have looked at the schedule and said, oh, the Mets are going to finish off their season in Miami. That's a great place to clinch, right? No worries at all about the Mets being able to beat the Marlins with their season on the line. Obviously, everything I just said is sarcastic because this is the scariest spoiler of them all, particularly for me, because I live in South Florida. So I have had to deal with Marlins fans my entire life. On Saturday, I'm bringing a Marlins fan with me to the game, which is not necessarily the best course of action, I'd guess, but it is my best friend, and he's going to go with me and my dad to catch the Saturday game where the Mets hopefully can clinch, because right now, if you look at where things stand, their magic number is 3 with 3 games left to play. You look at the Brewers and what they're going to put out there against the Reds in this series. Quinn Priester's starting on Friday night, and that's going to be, I think, a pretty regular start for him because they're not in the position where they have to set up their rotation. They got to buy. So, if anything, this is a weekend for them to stay fresh before they have to sit on the sidelines and wait. Do I think they're going to be throwing their starting pitchers 110 pitches and really going for it with their high leverage relievers and starting, William Contreras in every single game behind the dish? No, they're definitely going to take their foot off the gas a little bit. But they're also playing in front of their home crowd. They still need to win one more game to lock up home field advantage for the rest of the playoffs. So there is still something for them to play for on Friday night at least. And again, there's some pride about ending the season of one of your division rivals. So I think the Brewers are likely to win a game this weekend at least. I don't think that that's saying anything crazy. In which case, the Mets have to win this series. And ideally, you win Friday, you win Saturday, and you don't even worry on Sunday in a game 162 having to win that game. Now, the Diamondbacks are still technically in this, but the tragic number for them is 2 because they lost on Thursday. So the most wins they can get to at this point is 82, and the Mets are, or 83. And the Mets are sitting at 82 right now. So if the Mets win one more game and the Diamondbacks lose one more game, that's it. So you feel pretty good about the Mets' chances to get in over Arizona. It really does feel like Mets versus Reds at this point. But the bottom line is win the games in front of you. And so I'm going to be there tonight as well. So for anyone who's going to go to the game today, I'm going to try to get down to the ballpark a little bit early, hopefully an hour early, but I always overestimate or underestimate, I guess, how long it takes me to actually get down to Miami and get into the ballpark. But my plan is to get there early, and I'll be hanging out. If you get into the ballpark, left field, you see that like Budweiser porch. My plan is to hang out there. It's a good sort of meeting spot. So any of you fans who are going to the game, head over there and come up to me if you see me. And I'd love to meet some of you guys. And I'm going to be watching the game with Arm Layton, who's been on this show a bunch, co-founder of Just Baseball, also a Marlins fan. What am I doing to myself? This is like my childhood, going to games with my friends who are always Marlins fans. And, whenever the Marlins doing good, it just hurt a little bit worse. But here we are. I'm trying to exercise 30 years of demons in my own life here in this series, hoping the Mets can pull off a clinch and I could be in the building for it. So we'll see. I'm not planning to be there on Sunday just because I got some stuff going on that day. But regardless, let's talk about this series and what the Mets are going to throw out there, because Brandon Sproat's going to go tonight. But who knows who's going to pitch on Saturday and Sunday? My assumption is Clay Holmes would get the start on Saturday because he has just been better than Sean Manaea. And yes, Sean Manaea could be available out of the bullpen at any point. I don't necessarily think that they're going to give Manaea a start on Saturday. I think if anything, maybe they choose to hand the ball off to Manaea on Sunday instead of David Peterson. But you don't have a lot of good options here. Kodai Senga does not appear to be heading up to Miami or heading down to Miami probably for Port St. Lucie to get into the mix for this series. I think if you see Senga at this point, it would be in the playoffs, only if he figures something out in St. Lucie and starts to show that the mechanics are right and he's throwing the ball well. So again, it's Sproat on Friday and a lot of question marks, and it could be a lot of bullpen. If you get a lead and you have a chance, the Mets might just exhaust everything to win a game. So we'll see how they end up, getting through these next three games. Kevin Herget joined the roster prior to the game on Thursday and replaced Dickie Lovelady. Herget gives you a long man in the bullpen right now. So I imagine he sticks around for the game on Friday. I was surprised the Mets didn't take advantage of optioning Jonah Tong to free up a roster spot and get another fresh arm up. I thought Brandon Waddell would come up for sure, but maybe he's not available. I don't know what his status is. Who knows? Maybe he's a little worn down at the end of the season, so the Mets aren't going there. Maybe we still see him over the weekend. You could see Justin Hageman. And according to Gary Cohen during the game, who alluded to it, and then Mike Puma after the game, who reported on it, Dylan Ross could finally join the Mets as soon as Saturday. Now, what I didn't realize is Tim Britton had reported a couple weeks ago for The Athletic that Dylan Ross was dealing with a blister issue. And so that is one of the reasons why we might not have seen him up to this point. But this is a guy that throws over 100 miles per hour, and the Mets might decide to add him to the roster for this series and potentially keep him on the roster in the playoffs to give them another high-octane arm. Now, that would be asking a lot out of the guy that has no big league experience at this point, but maybe you're just going to lean into stuff, and Dylan Ross has really good stuff and put up big numbers in Syracuse. So that's really the state of the pitching staff. And when it comes to the Marlins side of the equation for this series, they've been setting themselves up for a big weekend of spoiler action. They have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. That happened with their loss against the Phillies on Thursday. So they're out of it, but they still have a chance to have a 80-win season if they sweep the Mets. And they, of course, want to knock the Mets out of the postseason. They're going to take this series like a playoff series for their young guys. And this has been a frisky team all year. The season series between the Mets and the Marlins is even 5-5. So it's not like the Mets have had the Marlins number this year. If anything, it's been the opposite. And they did not pitch Sandy Alcantara for over a week to set him up to pitch in this series, which is crazy. But you can say, oh, they just wanted him to make his last start in front of the home crowd. Or you can say, yeah, they were trying to stack the deck for this series. So it's going to be Sandy versus Sproat tonight. And last time Sandy pitched against the Mets, it was 7 innings of 1-run ball. The Marlins, they started out this month losing 7 of their first 8 games, and they reeled off 11 wins in their next 12 tries. They lost the last 2 games against the Phillies, but this is a team that has shown the ability to win this month. So it's not an easy task against a sub 500 team. This is a very tough Marlins team that is going to be giving it their absolute all, which could lead to a very frustrating series for the Mets. Yuri Perez is going to go on Saturday, talk about stuff. Yuri has great stuff. Now, the Mets did get to him in an outing this year, if memory serves. So all these guys can be hit, no doubt about it. But they're throwing their best 3 arms out there, with Yuri going on Saturday against Sandy tonight, and then Edward Cabrera on Sunday. Cabrera's had the best season of the 3. So we'll see how it goes. I really do think 84 wins get you in, so you got to win 2 of these games. I hope the Mets can do that work on the front end of this series. Win tonight, win tomorrow, when we're in the ballpark, and I'd love to see this team celebrating on the field, having clinched a playoff berth. That would be an awesome, awesome way to end a roller coaster of a season, and then you take your chances in the wild card round. Again, I'm not too optimistic that this team is a team of destiny that's going to win the World Series. But I love to see Nolan McLean make a playoff start at Dodger Stadium. I love to see how the Mets try to navigate that. And this lineup is really good. This Mets lineup can pile runs as good as any team in baseball. So they need to do some of that this weekend. They got to score on this Marlins pitching staff, and they got to hold on for dear life when it comes to holding these leads. The bullpen's in a better spot than it's been in a minute, but it's going to be some nerve-wracking baseball until the Mets get the job done. Hopefully the Brewers can do the Mets some favors. One thing I note, too, on the Red side of things, they, in their past series against the Pirates, they scored 2 runs or less in each of those games before they got into extra innings. And against the Cubs in that series they swept, they won 2 of those games 1-0. So this is not the best offensive team for the Reds here. And that Brewers team is a great offense. And yes, they're not going to play all of their guys, but the guys that do play are going to have some pride, and they have been unbelievable at home this year. And I don't think that they want to end their home season on a sour note, even though they know there's more games coming in October. I don't think the Brewers are just going to completely roll over and hand this to the Reds. So hopefully the Mets get a little bit of help there, and hopefully the Padres can help them out as well. The Padres still technically have something to play for as well, going up against the Diamondbacks, as they could still get home field for the wild card round, because I think they are 2.5 games back. Actually, no, a game and a half back of the Cubs, and that the Cubs lost to the Mets tonight. So they're a game and a half back. The tiebreakers should be the Padres, because they have a better in-division record than the Cubs do. And basically how it works out, if the Padres were to catch the Cubs, they would also sort of lock up the tiebreaker as well, the secondary tiebreaker, because those 2 teams split their season series. So they know that they're going to play the Cubs, but if they can win a couple of these games, actually, I guess they're not a game and a half back. Now they're 2 games back, because they didn't play, so they only picked up a half a game. But it's 2 games back with 3 left to play, so the Padres can sweep the Diamondbacks and the Cubs lose their series to the Cardinals, and the Padres get to host that wild card round. So there is still something for them to play for, but you can't count on those other teams doing your work for you. If the Mets back in with an 82-win team, that's not going to feel very good. So hopefully they can win this series, go out riding a little bit of momentum with a solid road trip, and then they're going to have to stay road warriors if they actually want to make a playoff run. I'm just hoping they get in at this point, and then we will take it from there. But I'll be in the ballpark the next 2 days, hopefully bringing some good luck to the Mets. I'm trying to think about what my record has been this season. I haven't gone to very many games. I think I only went to 2, actually, because I don't believe I went to any road series this year. I didn't make it out to Citi Field. So, yeah, I think I just went to that series at the very beginning of the season, and I think I got a 1-1 record. So, can't say I'm good luck, but I was good luck last year, and so hopefully I can bring some good luck in this series as the Mets take on the Marlins with their season on the line. I will have shows for you every single morning this weekend, so make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. We'll probably do a live stream on Sunday, especially if that game matters one way or the other. But if not, you're definitely going to have Chris Schubert doing some postcasts for you as well. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel so you're getting all that content. Make sure if you're listening on the audio side, you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service, go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that'll take you around all the action of Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts and league-wide experts that'll take you through the games. You find Locked On MLB Game Night and the Locked On MLB YouTube channel, as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.